Joining us now, Barbara Comstock, Republican Congresswoman, 10th District. That's the old district of Frank Wolf, stretches from Western Fairfax out to Winchester. And all the Democrats saying she's going to lose. They're all putting it as likely pickup, likely this, likely that. It's all part of Nancy Pelosi's grand plan to take over and be Speaker, no matter what the Democrats like Abigail Spanberger say. I'm not going to vote for Pelosi. Yes, she is. Pelosi's already said I'm going to be Speaker if I win by one vote. So that's it. And all the Democrats predicting this big victory by Jennifer Wexton, and all the pundits predicting it, and the polling predicting it. There's only one person in America who was predicting a Barbara Comstock victory in the press other than Barbara, and that's me, John Fredericks, because she's going to win this race. In fact, I'm so confident she's going to win that I'm going to do my election night show at Barbara Comstock headquarters. And, you know, we never go and do our show where there's a loser. Never, because it's a downer, and it's kind of a downer for the show, and it's a big night for us because we have a huge following, and we've already asked the Comstock campaign for us to let us do our show there just to send a message, because it's going to be fun. And once I find out where it is, and she's going to be joining us momentarily, I'm going to order a case of Rolling Rock light beer. That's my beer. And I'm going to order a case because for everybody, some people don't know how good this beer is. It's my favorite beer. And it's great. So I'm going to order that. I'm going to ship it there. And then when she wins, I'm going to laugh my tail off. I'm going to be laughing for 5 hours, just like I did in 2016 at Trump Tower at the Hilton when he won. So it's going to be fun. So I'm really looking forward to it. And anyway, joining us now, Barbara Comstock. Hey, Barbara, great to have you with us.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Okay, so let me ask you this, Barbara. The Democrats are saying that you voted for President Trump 98% of the time, and they're trying to tag you with that, which I think is a good thing. I'd have voted for him 100% of the time. You voted for him 98. I think that's pretty good. But the majority of those votes were nonpartisan votes, right? So explain that.
Yeah, well, you know, the press, and thank you for asking, because it's funny, every time we talk with the press about this, we say, have you looked at the votes? Regardless of how you feel about the president or not, what you should really do is look at what are good policies for the American people, and certainly for my constituents. 82% of these bills are bipartisan. 82%. Your listeners haven't heard that now. They're hearing it for the first time because the press isn't covering that. And so what's included in those? Well, first, there are 6 bills to cut your taxes. Now, those are mostly the bills that aren't bipartisan, because we know Democrats want to raise your taxes, not cut them. So we'll make that departure that I am going to cut your taxes. My opponent has already promised to raise them, take away that child tax credit of $2,000, raise rates on everybody. You know, and that would be devastating to our great economy that's, you know, going so well right now. But the other bills on that scorecard include 4 bills on the opioid crisis that I was just working on last night with our local Loudoun sheriff. 11 bills are to cut business red tape, and of those 11, 8 of those were bipartisan. 7 of the bills are to keep the government open and to fully fund our military, to fund things like the opioid crisis, to fund medical research at NIH, you know, where we're doing record amount of funding for Alzheimer's, cancer research, diabetes. So these are all great investments that neither the Republican Party nor the president are getting credit for, and the results that we've done on a bipartisan basis. You know, it also has things like my get the criminal alien gang members out of the country. Also the Stop School Violence bill, you know, that people want something done dealing with school violence. My opponent has failed on every bill she's put forward on that issue. We've had 3 bills that the president has signed this year that are stopping school violence, you know, helping get the background check system updated, and then my Project Safe Neighborhoods bill. These are all things that my opponent opposes because she's a partisan, and the press doesn't want to report. They throw out that number, and they just want to resist and attack and say no to everything. But these are good policies that are making our country stronger economically, stronger national security, and a safer place to live. These are policies that people should be embracing, not resisting.
So let's make this comparison, Congresswoman, to Jennifer Wexton, who is one of the most liberal state senators in the
Number
Commonwealth.
one. She was rated number one this year, liberal, and raising your taxes. Unlike Abigail Spanberger, Jennifer Wexton is supporting Nancy Pelosi. She's all in on Nancy for Speaker.
Well, look, at the end of the day, they're all supporting him because, like Abigail Spanberger has taken $600,000 of her money. You're not going to take $500,000 over that and then say, I'm going to vote for somebody else. And by the way, there is nobody else. So look, the whole thing is a ruse. If the Democrats take over, and Pelosi has said this over and over and over, if they take over by one vote, she has the votes in the caucus to be Speaker. And the whole thing about not voting for her, if you're a Democrat, is a complete ruse. So let's get to your record, which is really what the Wexton campaign is challenging now. They're saying, look, Barbara Comstock runs around saying she votes independently, she votes in favor of the district. But look, we look at the record. She's voted 97.7 the times for Trump. But let's give a couple of examples where you went the other way, and let's start with salary increases for federal workers. Explain that.
Well, we've gotten the pay raises for federal employees. There was talk by the administration, and they've turned it around. And we have pay raises now in our budget for federal employees, which I happen to think is a good thing, and I fought for, and I've been a leader on that. My opponent's just a follower on, she would have been for the Schumer shutdown, which would hurt our federal employees. I've also been the leader who has gotten the $150 million for Metro every year, but also pressing for reforms. My opponent is going to be all in with the union, and we won't have bipartisan leadership in the Washington area for the first time in decades if I'm not there to fight for our region. And this is going to be a Republican administration, and I think it's going to be a House majority also, but we certainly know it's going to be a Senate majority. So if you don't have at least one Republican in there fighting for the region, fighting for Dulles Airport, as I have, and made sure the airport was protected, fighting for our Metro money, helping with our federal employees, but also our whole defense industry. My opponent has not had any relationships there with our defense businesses, and this is such an important part of our economy, but also our national security. And at the one national security debate, the primary Democrats had, she said, well, yeah, I really don't know much about any of this. And so that's certainly true, but this is a vital part of our local economy, and I have decades of experience there. And so I think for the region, we need to be able to, have somebody who has both relationships with the administration as well as relationships with our very diverse economy, including our defense, technology, even our agriculture, which, she's ignored the western part of the district, which has a large agriculture sector also.
We're with Barbara Comstock, Congresswoman Comstock. She represents the 10th District of Virginia. That's the Northern Sphere, going from Western Fairfax to Winchester. She's running for a third term. Her Democratic opponent, Jennifer Wexton, the most liberal state senator in the Commonwealth. They will not come on our show, etc., afraid to answer a legitimate question. I suppose I don't really have any idea, but you can't find her anyway. Barbara,
she skipped, as you know, in Winchester, the major political event, for decades. It's a hobnob in the valley with the chamber. She skipped that event. And this is something that, Democrats and Republicans alike have all gone to. Their local Democrat city council people went to and were very frustrated that they didn't turn up. But that's sort of the disdain that even Democrats have noted. She didn't show up at any of the county fairs where you really meet with and talk with our agriculture community. And these are, you have to understand the entire district, not just her partisans that she has spent her time with, because this is the resistance crowd. Look, the death threats, the rape threats. Poor Susan Collins, is getting rape threats and attacks. And, we have people who are getting signs mowed down in their front yards where people trench their yard and drive over a sign. And, they're afraid to put up a sign. Their neighbor will yell at them, this resistance crowd. We've got to have some civility here. regardless of what Hillary Clinton, and by the way, Hillary Clinton is supporting my opponent too, along with, the abusive and miserable Jim Moran and people like that. I mean, this is a partisan crowd, and we need to have some bipartisan leadership here in our region.
Well, Congresswoman, there's no question the angry mob mentality that's going around the country right now is very disconcerting to a lot of people. As you said, Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, getting death threats, rape threats. Now we find out that somebody allegedly sent a poison powder to her home in Maine where her family lives. I mean, all this stuff is just beyond the pale. And it isn't going to stop because there's, until the Democrats condemn this. And Bernie Sanders kind of like halfway said, well, it's not a good idea. But, you got Hillary Clinton coming out and saying, look, we're fighting for the Republic. And so we got to get rid of all these Republicans. And so you can be uncivil. I mean, as long as they condone it, it's going to keep happening until they stop. I know you're a student of history. It reminds me of the 68 campaign, Humphrey, Nixon, Wallace. And you were probably too young to remember it like me. I'm much older than you. But back in that campaign, Richard Nixon had a big lead because the Democrats had all the resistors and the protesters and the mobs. And Humphrey was down by like 15. That race was over. And he had a confrontation with a protester. And he called him out. He shouted him down. And he said, all of you guys that are protesting, you have nothing to do with the Democratic Party or me or my campaign, and I renounce you all, and you're a bunch of losers. I'm paraphrasing.
We have nobody doing that now.
That's right. And when Humphrey...
This is their party now.
That's right.
Who they are. What you saw during the Supreme Court confirmation, those are people... I mean, they caught... I'm on the committee that oversees the Capitol Police, the House Administration Committee, and I was talking to our Capitol Police. That has cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But and these people who come up, it is just mindless attacks. One of the police asked somebody on the Supreme Court steps, can you name a case that you're upset about on the Supreme Court? And they couldn't even name a case. They couldn't name anything. This is just the mindless resistance that we have that everything is saying no to. And my opponent hasn't put forward a positive agenda. It's all the resistance and no. I mean, we cannot be resisting 4.2% growth, the largest family income ever that we've had, lowest unemployment across all demographic groups. And that's why, as we're going around and meeting with the diverse population of our district, I mean, we are constantly at events in the district with all kinds of people across the district. They're excited about an economy that's growing. We just were with an Indian family who he's an IT professional, and she was too, and she actually quit her job to start a restaurant. So they are, a young family with 2 young children, and they have this new restaurant, and they're excited about this economy that's growing in our region, and they're who our district is about. I don't hear about resistance from them. I hear about the issues. We met with our local supervisors, so we're talking about how easy it is to start a business. Fortunately, in Loudoun County, we have good economic development folks that I've worked with for a long time. That's why we attract our business in this area, because we've put a good underlying, business structure there. And that's what we did with our tax bills. And we are set to grow and have this economy just take off, innovation. And we're an innovation center. But these guys want to bring it all to a halt and start investigations and impeachments of Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, these things that are on their list
Trump
are not things that are going to help one more person start that restaurant or start an IT company or provide opportunities for their children.
Let's get to some policy. The Jamal Khashoggi affair dominating everything right now, the relationship with the Saudis under question. You've got one of the most interesting alliances, Barbara, of all time in the Republican Senate caucus, Rand Paul, the non-interventionalist, coming together with Lindsey Graham, the neocon poster child, in wanting a response to the Saudis, especially as it relates to supporting the Saudi Emirates coalition in the Yemeni civil war. And we're still working with an AUMF that goes back to 2001, since 9/11. If you get reelected to Congress, are you in favor of re-upping the AUMF and reevaluating it?
Well, I think I agree with Senator Graham and Senator Paul. The Crown Prince should step aside. I think the evidence, certainly we need to continue the investigation, but I think the evidence certainly indicates that he knew about things, everything we know about the region, and this is not going to be a good relationship that we can have here as a result of this. And so it is just unspeakable what happened here. Certainly all the stories and indications are that something extremely violent and terrible happened there. And whether we have to have sanctions or some type of action here, I think when you have that kind of alliance with Senator Graham and Senator Paul, I think we are going to have to take that up.
Isn't that, Congresswoman, one of the most interesting alliances you've ever seen between two people that are at opposite wings? Rand Paul, like me, wants out of all these wars. Like me, is a non-interventionalist. Lindsey Graham, supporter of the military-industrial complex. You could call him the poster child of the neocons, coming together for this in the same manner, wanting to reevaluate the Saudi relationship. So it sounds like you're in favor after the facts are in, because the president said, look, I'm not going to act till I get all the facts. I got Secretary of State Pompeo there. We're going to get to the bottom of it. But we just played a clip from Mike Pence earlier saying that if indeed this is true, they're going to have to be accountable for this, and we're going to do something. So it sounds like you're in favor of some action, right?
Oh, definitely. And, unfortunately, I think these stories certainly look like they, all the evidence is pointing to something pretty horrific, that the reason you're having people, from different wings united is this is a pretty in-your-face, horrendous thing that has stood up to.
What you just said is very profound. In your face, right? This thing was in your face, and it just poking your thumb in the eye of any of the alliance, basically. It was in your face. I think you nailed it on that one. Okay, I'm going to get permission to do my election night, my award-winning, famous, internationally known election night show from Barbara Comstock Re-Election Victory Party headquarters somewhere.
Great, that will be wonderful, and we look forward to that. And we are fighting hard, as we always do, right through the tape. And as you know, the predictions on pretty much all of our races have often certainly been wrong. The Washington Post was so upset last time they didn't even write that I won. When I won by 6, I was a paragraph in Tim Kaine lost in some story, and my poor mom kept looking for the story. Gee, didn't they write that I won? You won. So this is we're used to this, but we're out talking to people every day and meeting with constituents from a wide base, and we are going to finish strong like we always do.
So, Congresswoman,
focus on the issues that people care about. You know that as you come and go around, is people want to have prosperity, safety, and opportunity for their children, and that is everything that we are providing right now. And we got leadership, and we don't need followers of the resistance. We need people who are going to lead on these important issues. I have a record of doing it for decades and being enmeshed in my district and all the diversity of my district.
So, Congresswoman, I've only got a half a minute. Are you going to win this race and confirm once again the genius political pundit that I am?
We will be doing that, yes. So you're going to have to take that victory lap with us.
No, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be laughing so hard at all of the pollsters and all the pundits when you win this race, and especially my good friend Ben Tribbett, who says you're going to get beat by double digits. So I can't wait. What's your website?
It is Barbara Comstock for Congress.com.
Barbara Comstock for Congress.com.
We need donations because, you know all those Pelosi donations, tens of thousands of dollars that are coming in. We need to have some match to that. So I would ask your listeners, this is going to be one of those seats they want in order to put Pelosi in the speaker's chair again. Help us stop that and stop the resistance and get back to the strong policies of prosperity and public safety and our national security, and we will be fighting for your families and for your businesses and for your kids.
Go to BarbaraComstockForCongress.com, get out your checkbook, do it over online, give her a donation, and if you show up at her victory party, you can have one of my ice-cold Rolling Rock beers after our show's over, and we celebrate.